we've worked together on projects in the past. And when we've sat down and talked, you've shared insights and stories. And you're actually the reason this podcast is launching
Oh,
because, yeah,
sure.
so I appreciate you
Thank
sitting
you.
down and having this conversation today.
Thank you.
So first off, you've built a successful company in a competitive industry. So can you share some key moments in your personal growth that prepared you for this role?
Yeah, no, absolutely. When I finished high school, my dad probably made me do one of the hardest things that I did not want to do, which was continue my education.
Okay.
And he told me, and my dad is the founder of Service King Collision Repair Centers. And he told me, he said, Jeremy, I really don't want you working for me until you get, you finish your education, at least your bachelor's. And so I did. I went to Texas Tech and took care of that and came back to Dallas. And I was able to work for him in his office. And I had worked in the summers prior to this in the shop, painting, doing body work, cleaning up cars, but
Okay.
he wouldn't let me work in the office because he wanted me to get my education.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did that. I really, because I wanted to just go to work and start making money as any,
Of course.
18, 19-year-old wants to do that, that's hungry, to get out in the world. But I went and got my education and, I did what I thought was the right thing at the time and came back and started working for him.
Okay.
Beyond that, yeah, I think there's several things that perpetuated myself to where I am today.
Okay.
I would say probably, Dani, 8 to 10 years after I had worked for him full time, me and my brother went to my dad and said, "Hey, Dad, you've got, I think it was 25 locations in Dallas, and we'd like to maybe try something different or go somewhere and do something different for you." And he was like, "Okay, well, put a business plan together and present it to me, and we'll talk about it more." And
I
so,
love that.
and so that's exactly what me and Jared did. We presented a plan to him to expand Service King into Houston, and we identified, the first location where we could go, all the demographic information that is around that location.
Right. What inspired that? What was you and your brother sitting down, like,
Mhm.
why are we limited? What was the why?
I'll tell you exactly what the why is that he already had the infrastructure in place here
Mhm.
in Dallas to support Dallas. And we knew that there wasn't much more upward movement for us. And so, in order for us to take the next step in our career, we were going to have to go outside of Dallas
Yeah.
and do that. And at that time, neither one of us had the money to open a body shop on our own. And so we needed his support. And what better fit to do it as a Service King?
Right.
And it took off. The business, it spread like rampant the next 4 years throughout Houston. It was a good venture for Service King. There's no doubt about it. But that's probably the second thing that I would contribute to my success today. The third, and probably, what I consider the most important step
Okay.
for me was when I actually separated from Service King probably about 2 years into the Houston project. I really didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew that I wanted to stay in the collision repair business.
Of course.
And I just didn't know exactly what to do. And so through talking with my dad, he knew the founder of Abra Auto Body and Glass, and his name was Rolly Benjamin. My dad introduced me to Rolly, and Rolly said, "Hey, I've got an opportunity in Atlanta. I just bought 18 locations there, and I need help getting them cleaned up." And so me and my wife packed up and moved to Atlanta.
Oh.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was a different situation, but that experience really helped me grow individually because Abra gave me the opportunity to manage multiple locations at one time.
Yeah.
And I was able to experiment with things that I'd done at Service King in a way that was very productive for Abra because they didn't use the same processes that we did.
Right.
And so we spent almost 2.5 years in Atlanta reshaping those 18 locations that he had at the time.
Okay.
And the one thing that that was moving to Atlanta was a big move for us. So I'll tell you, it did a lot of things for me, actually, professionally that I just mentioned. But personally, me and my wife had been trying to have kids for years, and we
Yeah.
couldn't. And fortunately, while we were in Atlanta, my wife Liz got pregnant, and that's where our son was born. And
That's
so,
amazing.
yeah, he was the first grandchild into our family. And so, it didn't take long before we were ready to move back to Dallas, which is home,
Right.
for us. And that's what we did. We moved back home and started working for Service King again,
Okay.
for my dad. But at that time, which was probably around 2011,
Hmm.
at that time, Service King was in the process of being propped up for a sale.
Okay.
And so I knew that was coming, and I knew what I was potentially getting myself into, which was new ownership, which scared me. But I didn't put a whole lot of thought into it because I was simply focused on growing my dad's business.
Yeah.
And so I had a lot of pivotal moments,
Yes, it sounds like it.
that has put me where I am today. And I'm by no means perfect, and I still make bad decisions. But one thing that I'm pretty good at is not making the same bad decision twice.
Yes.
And so I think with all of those experiences, Dani, that's really what has put me in the position that I'm at today.
Yeah. So when you talked about you and your brother first approaching your dad and he was like, give me a business plan. So it
Hmm.
sounds like when it comes to business first, and then
Oh,
and then you're
yeah.
my kid.
Yeah, he's very professional and business oriented and shrewd at the same time, and smart.
Yes. So Harvey's Collision Centers has seen success, but what does leveling up look like for you and your company in the next 5 to 10 years? I love the 5 year. Where do you see yourself in
Yeah,
5 years?
yeah, I know. I'm asked this question fairly frequently,
Uh,
and it's a good question. It is. And the answer to the question is a bit vague, but I will point it as much as I can. For me, leveling up is about being happy.
mm,
When you mention leveling up, that's the first thing I think about is at what point am I going to be happy with the business?
right.
And again, to answer your question, I think it's about store count. We definitely want to continue to grow. We grow in a way that is responsible. We grow in a way that I feel like is a mature way to grow a business. We do not take out a lot of debt in order to grow the business. We save our money just
Yes.
like my dad taught me. And I think that in 5 to 10 years, Dani, if I can have a place to go to that creates happiness for me and my family,
Yeah.
along with my employees that are happy, I think the sky's the limit for me. I really do.
Mm.
We need to build out Dallas and
Uh-huh.
Fort Worth, before we think about other markets. But I would say in the next 5 years, I would like to probably have 15 to 20 locations. But I don't, we're not really interested in being a huge conglomerate.
Right.
I don't want,
You've done that.
yeah, I've
Yeah.
been a part of, a big organization and growing a big organization. And that's very, very stressful.
So being in a leadership role like you are in, that
Hmm.
does come with a lot of responsibility. So how do you manage the pressure of the job and keep that work-life balance in check?
It's hard.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
bet.
it's really difficult. Early on in my tenure at Harvey's, I mean, Liz can
Yeah.
tell you I worked probably, I don't know, 12, 15 hours a day.
Yeah.
And I did it for 2 or 3 years, first 2 or 3 years we were open, just because I was so afraid of either a customer being mad or
Hmm.
an insurance company being upset with the repair or an employee being mad. I
Right.
just wanted to be there all the time. But what I found was that my family's the one who suffered, as a result of that. And so what I do today is a lot different than I did, call it 7, 8 years ago.
Hmm.
Today, I work out every single day. In addition to that, I think my wife being able to talk to her,
Right.
daily about, whatever it is that's going on, up at work
Yeah, that sounding board.
is another piece of the puzzle. And then, lastly, probably bringing in a business partner, which is Jeff McFadden,
Uh-huh.
a year and a half ago. That's helped me too, help manage the stress and being able to talk to him and bounce things off him and using him as a sounding board when either I'm stuck or, I've got a big issue that we need to resolve. And so I think I've got multiple things around me
Okay.
to help with the stress. But, our business, it's a tough business.
Yeah.
It's not easy. The car business, or the collision repair business, rather, we're typically messing with a household's number two asset.
Ooh.
And not in all cases,
Yeah.
Dani, not in all, but in most cases, there's an emotional attachment tied to that vehicle,
Yes.
whether it's from the husband, the wife, or maybe it's the kid's car.
Mm-hmm.
And when there's an emotional attachment tied to something, it can create an environment that's very happy, very pleasant to be in, if we do a bang out job and,
Yes.
do everything right. Or it can be the complete opposite, if we did not do things that we were supposed to do and the customer's upset, and it's a challenge. It's very difficult.
Yeah. I had not made this connection. Kind of sort of knew it intuitively, but until you said it. In 2021, I had some life changes and I had to find a car on my own. And I was between this Hyundai Elantra that was like 2015. This is 2021, but it only had 50,000 miles. And this other I think it was a Chrysler 300. It was my favorite shade of blue. And I had already been through an accident. And the car salesperson was very sweet and he let me drive both. And I'm like, we were sitting down. He's like, which one do you want? I was like, well, I have a commute, so I'm going to take the Hyundai Elantra. He's like, great. Now that you made your choice, you needed to take the Hyundai Elantra.
Yeah, right.
And so late last year, my child had a wreck. It was minor, but it was enough to total the car that they had.
Uh-huh.
So I ended up passing on that Elantra to them.
Uh-huh.
And it was hard because that was like the first car I bought on my own. I felt such an emotional connection with this car.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't until that moment that I passed the keys to them. I was like, oh, you better take care of this car. So yeah, now that you mention it.
Well, like you having that attachment to that Hyundai, there's millions and millions of people that have a very similar attachment to their car.
Yeah.
And it's up to me to change that whole situation for them. And that's not easy to do.
No.
Because when people walk into my store, they're not shoe shopping. They're coming for a reason.
Right.
They need their car fixed, and it's up to us how we do that. And you got to do it one car at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be painful, through the years because it's very monotonous and it's repetition.
Right.
But the more you do it, the better you get at it. We've got good people. My business is about the people that work for you. It is, yes, it does. It starts with me and Jeff, but it is a labor-intensive market.
Right.
There's no doubt about it.
How do you foster that growth in others?
Well, I think it probably starts with the interview process. I've got a lot of experience with interviewing people, and I can almost sense when someone's sitting across the table from me if they're going to be a good fit. And so as time goes on, again, the better we get at it,
right?
We start making pretty good selection in employees and people that really fit our mold. And that's what creates success in my business is the people that are working for you. I'm telling you, it's the truth about my business. It's a skilled labor market, and it's hard finding really good people, as you know.
Yes. From your perspective, what's one common mistake that executives or leaders in your field often make, and how can they avoid that?
I think probably the biggest gap that executives or C-level employees have is the ability to listen. Because think about I'm in charge. I'm always the one that, is directing the ship and, and turning it right and turning it left. And I'm used to giving commands. What happens is it's real easy for me to stay in that mode.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And so I think probably the biggest gap with high level employees is their ability to listen. But it's not, when I say listen, I'm not talking about listening to your spouse. I'm talking about listening to employees, listening to
Right.
customers, listening to insurance companies, listening to your partner. I'm talking about that.
Right. It sounds like there's a space for humility that's needed as well.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
there is. Absolutely. And if I gained some of my best knowledge from talking to customers,
I
from
mean, that's why
talking.
we're talking to you.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. But it is. That's what when I look around the landscape and I look at different CEOs or C-level. It doesn't even have to be C-level. Just anybody in management.
Hmm.
I think I see the biggest issue is their ability to really, really listen
Right.
and then, take action on that. That's probably what I see as the biggest gap.
How did you learn that lesson?
My wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That I can tell you for myself, it took, oh my gosh, we're talking a lot of practice.
Yep.
I know you mentioned about reading books and,
Uh-huh.
and educating yourself. I do the same thing too.
Okay.
And, so I've read a couple of what consider really good books. The first is when I was younger, in my 20s, I read a book called The Millionaire Next Door, which
Hmm.
is a great read, self-help read.
All right. I'm gonna put that on my
Um,
list.
oh, it's fantastic. And then furthermore, Dale Carnegie wrote a really good book about how to win friends and influence people.
Yes.
And I really kind of live by his principles, that he put out there. And we send our employees through Dale Carnegie classes, our
Oh,
GMs we do.
yeah. Okay.
And
Another way you're fostering growth.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, it's another piece of the training
Yeah.
aspect. And you asked me about the listening piece. Yes, my wife is probably the one who's taught me,
Okay.
but I think that's what I was trying to tie that into. But I think also with the training through Dale Carnegie,
Mm.
I think all of that stuff's helped
Yeah.
me and put me to where I am today.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So you mentioned books. Are there any podcasts that influence you or
Uh,
that you listen to? Sorry.
Yeah, no, no, no. So in terms of podcasts, like TV shows, I don't really do or listen
Okay.
to much of that. I wouldn't say I'm more of a reader, but I do love music.
Okay.
I do
Yes.
like music a lot.
What do you
And
listen to?
yeah, well, so seeing that I'm 49,
Okay.
my late teenage and early 20s was, in the 90s,
Right.
mid 90s. So I certainly have some favorites. One being Pearl Jam. I like that whole, which I guess you can call it a grunge
Uh-huh.
genre.
I love that you said music and how it just inspires you because it is. It's so true.
Well, it's influenced me too. And
Okay.
it's really, it shaped me partially to who I am today. That when back in the 90s, things were a lot different then
Oh, yes.
than today, especially with music and the way that I thought music was going at the time. But even like when I go work out today,
Uh-huh.
that's one of my stress relievers. And I
Yeah.
love music, but my 15-year-old son could care less.
Right.
Now he loves going to Pearl Jam concerts with me.
Mm-hmm.
He does, but he won't just turn it on and listen to it.
So you actually are going into the next thing I wanted to touch on, like habits that you have that have also shaped your leadership journey. And you've mentioned fitness,
Mhm.
and you mentioned listening to music, also being a stress reliever.
Mhm.
Any other habits that you have that have helped on this journey?
Yeah, I do not drink any longer, and
Okay,
so, I've been sober for 10 years now,
congrats.
and I think that has probably played a role
Yeah.
into my tenure with Harvey's for
Hmm.
sure. But, outside of that, Danny, that I'm pretty simple. I
Okay.
don't wanna try to complicate or make the listener think that, I got all these different things that keep me going and motivated and push me. I really don't. I'm a pretty simple guy.
Sometimes it comes down to those simple things, right? And just like you mentioned, comes down to simple, what do you do every day that
Yeah.
keeps you at functioning at a high level?
Yeah, yeah. In my business, Danny, you've got as the owner, you've got to be present. I have to be at the stores. My employees have to see me, and they've got to know the direction,
Mhm.
of the business. And it's more, for me, it's more about the success comes from being, making good decisions, and all you got to be a hard worker.
Right.
You've got to be if you got a problem getting up in the morning and going into work at 7 o'clock and working until 6, you shouldn't be in the collision repair business
Mm,
because I mean, it's long hours,
right.
but I don't think there's anything magical about what I'm doing.
Mhm.
It's just a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
It really is.
It
That's what
sounds like it.
it is. But it's all good.
It sounds like it. You mentioned being happy and what does that mean for you? It's such a broad
Yeah.
word, right?
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I think it's balance.
Mm,
Being able, for me, I see happiness as being able to balance my home life, spend the time that I need with Liz and Dax,
uh-huh.
and also spend the time that I need at work too.
Right.
And those two things for me are what drive me and keep me going.
Mm,
That's really it.
yeah.
It's not anything magical that I do.
Mhm.
I think it's more along the lines of my work ethic, the decisions that I make. I think if you were to ask an employee
Right.
about Jeremy Lennox and who he is as a man, they would probably say that he works pretty hard. He's a hard worker. And if I had to guess, I don't know this, but if I had to guess, it's probably the same for my dad.
Yeah.
I probably learned that behavioral trait through him by watching him,
Mm.
and that you can't let up. Like, I can't be gone for a month,
Right.
go on vacation. I'd love to be able to do that, and someday I will.
Mhm.
But you just, as the owner, a small business in the collision repair space,
Yeah.
you've got to be present,
And
and you've
this
got
is
to be,
this yeah, this is the season of life you're in.
yeah,
Yeah.
you've got to be in tune with what's going on, because if you're not, then what I mentioned earlier, one of those cars that leave,
Mm,
that you fix it the wrong way,
yeah.
and you hurt somebody.
Mm. How do you define your legacy at Harvey's?
Oh man.
Because eventually you're probably gonna reach that point where then you're your father, right? And Dax is like, "Dad, what should I be doing with my life?"
Yeah, I think you could define my legacy characterized by several different attributes.
Mhm.
I think, I have, first and foremost, a commitment to quality, being able to provide a quality product to our customers,
Right.
and our insurance partners. I think also with the business is, we take a customer centric approach.
Mhm.
We want to provide the same experience to every single customer. And we define that experience as a boutique experience. So we're still going to pick up the phone and call you if that's how you want to be communicated with.
Yes.
We'll text you if that's what you prefer, or we'll email you, or we'll do all three if that's what you want as the customer. So when I say customer centric approach, that's
Uh-huh.
really what I'm referring to, is being able to communicate with customers however they may want to be communicated with. Beyond that, I think with the business, we've got a really good community engagement.
Okay.
We support several different elementary schools down in South Dallas
Mm,
every year, and we're involved with just our communities that we sit in, period.
right.
Whether it's, being part of the Better Business Bureau or being part of the Oaklawn Plan Committee. I can tell you that we are very engaged with the community involvement as a business. But we're talking about my legacy,
Yes.
right?
Well,
But it's a
I'm
piece. The community involvement is
right.
it is a piece. I would say in addition to that, team development, being able so when I mentioned earlier about adding locations responsibly,
Right.
we try not to get the cart in front of the horse, meaning we try not to have 2 locations opening at the same time.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Because
Yes.
we want to be able to develop the team there first. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so that's what I mean when I'm talking about team development.
Okay.
I think that we also practice sustainability practices, and then strong brand identity
Yes.
is probably the last piece of the legacy question that you asked. I think that Mr. Harvey or John Harvey,
Uh-huh.
he obviously developed the brand originally. We
Mhm.
have enhanced it, since I purchased the business. And so, yeah, I think probably those 4 things that I just mentioned would be what I would consider my legacy towards the business.
I love that. And I do love that you included, how you give back. I feel that's an important part
It is.
of for a business.
It is. And I'll tell you, like for me, I've done it my whole life. So what we'll do is we'll take a couple of employees from the business
Okay.
to that engagement, at Christmas time. And when they see that and feel that and what it feels like for that kid to get a present that probably has not ever had one at Christmas time,
Mhm.
it is, it makes you grateful for what
Right.
you've got. And we do it not to, put a shining star on Harvey's, but
Right.
it's to help the kid or whomever's in, that we're trying to take care of.
I feel that awareness in those conversations, it's okay to have. When I interviewed with my former executive back in 21, he mentioned we were interviewing and then he said, I recognize that I'm in a position of privilege. And he's like, and if I can help someone out, I want to do that. And he's like, and I want to help you out.
Hmm.
And it was the greatest move I feel that I've made in my life because being at that table taught me even more confidence and
Sure.
helped me grow professionally and personally. Like you mentioned, being able to give back that I understand the importance of that and have been on that receiving end as well.
Yeah. That's pretty dynamic when that occurs.
Right.
And it can change your life,
Yes.
as if you were there just supporting the function, or if you're the one that's receiving
Hmm.
the gift that may be. It's very powerful
Yeah.
and it's moving. It is.
If you could go back and give your younger self, and I'm sure this is something you've probably been asked before,
Hmm.
one piece of career advice, what would it be?
Yeah, that's easy for me. And I
Okay.
mentioned it earlier. It's for me, it's being a better listener.
Listener.
Yeah, it really is. As I progressed through my 30s and, was helping my dad out, I wanted to be the boss. I wanted to be him
Yeah.
and I wanted to be the guy in charge. And I probably didn't do a really good job of listening. Just period. Listening to whether it be friends, whether it be my spouse
Hmm.
or employees. I probably didn't do a good job there.
Yeah.
That's what the advice I would give my younger self if I could go back is to be a better listener for sure.
You touched on when you were younger, you're like, yeah, I'm ready to be the boss. I want to go be the boss. But your dad had you do something before, you went off to get your education. He had you work in the shop. How do you feel that has helped you as a leader, understanding how to do the work?
Yeah, so I'll tell you what that did is it taught me the value of a dollar.
Yeah.
And I had to learn from an early well, first of all, I think it's important to understand that when I grew up as a kid, Service King we had it was very small at that time. I came from a blue collar family
Uh-huh.
and I had to learn how to, if I want something,
Right.
then it's got to be my money that's going to be spent on whatever it is that I wanted.
Uh-huh.
And so I learned at an early age that you got to save your money
Hmm.
if you want something. And and so I think through working in my dad's stores through my high school years in the summer, it taught me not only the business,
Mhm.
and how to fix a car, but it also taught me real life accomplishments and how you do how you save money.
Yeah.
That's what it did, and it taught me how to work
Yeah.
and how to get up early in the morning to and be responsible and go to a job. All of that for me, Danny, is what shaped me who I am today.
So finally, what's one piece of advice you would give to someone who's working their way up in a company and wants to take that leap?
Yeah, I would probably encourage that individual to be patient
Okay.
and to not get in a hurry to get into that position. Hey, listen, I get the fact, that you want to be a president of a company or you want to be the central functioning officer of the company. And there's a lot to those positions. They carry a lot of value and a
Mhm.
lot of weight, and they are powerful positions. However, I think that we need to have a certain amount of life experiences before we get put in that position. Because when you're in that position and you make a decision, you're probably changing someone's life around you or that
Mm.
works for you.
Mhm.
And you need to be acutely aware of what you're affecting when you're making those decisions. And it's our responsibility as executives to be cognizant of that and to understand, if I make this decision, who's it going to affect and how's it going to affect them.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I know that's a long answer to your question, but I would say be patient
Yeah.
with wanting to move into one of those positions, because it depends on the company you work for, but that's a very demanding job and it can be a pressure cooker
Yeah.
too, again, depending on who you work for.
I know, but I do appreciate that you mentioned there's a human aspect to it too, right? And it sounds like remember to have a touch of kindness as you go about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you do. You have to, and I can give you like here's a perfect example
Okay.
of what you're talking about. I have at one of my stores, it's two brothers that are a paint team,
Okay.
and they work together every day. They live right next door to one another,
Okay.
and about once a year they have a disagreement.
Okay.
And the disagreement can be on a whole array of different things. But yesterday they had a disagreement, and I told both of the guys, I was like, listen, hey, I understand you guys are brothers, you guys have history together, you work together every day. You guys are going to have to learn how to communicate in a manner that's more effective
Mhm.
and in a way that both of you don't get your feelings hurt.
Yeah.
And so you also need to understand too that this is not a playground, and we can't argue here, and
Yes.
we've got a job to do. And so when you go back to when you talk about the kindness, that's
Mhm.
exactly what I thought about was my interaction with this brother team
Uh-huh.
at one of our locations that just happened yesterday. And if I wasn't as good of a listener as I was, I probably would have told both of the guys, listen, y'all settle, y'all figure something else out. I'll get new people in here.
Right.
And that in my business, you don't want to do that, because both these guys are pretty talented guys,
Yeah.
and we want to try to mend that if we can as a business, that relationship.
Jeremy, thank you again for sitting with
You're
us. I
welcome.
appreciate it. And I know our listeners have as well. And like I said, you have so many key insights and just personal knowledge and history
Thank
that
you.
it's so valuable.
Thank you.
And as an EA, I also recognize you spent an hour of your time with us. So
Yeah, yeah.
I can't express how grateful I am.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much.
And that's a wrap on today's episode. If you've been with us before, thank you for taking this trip down memory lane. Jeremy Lennox reminds us that success isn't built overnight. It's shaped through consistency, resilience, and the people who choose to show up and do the work day in and day out. And if you're new here, We are especially glad you found your way to With Hat and Cattle. Around here, we share stories from people who walk the walk and leave you better off for listening. If something in this episode stuck with you, share it with someone who's building something of their own. And as always, take one thing you heard today and go put that into motion. We'll be back soon with fresh episodes. Until then, keep showing up, keep building, and join me at the table.